Hey guys, today we're going to be replacing the power steering pump on the Jeep. This is going to be part number from AutoZone, Advanced Auto Parts 2711. We're just going to produce this part number, or this part actually. This is the part without the reservoir. I'm going to be reusing the old reservoir of my old pump. Along with this, you want to grab yourself another pulley. This is a plastic pulley. This is going to be a part number 300-310. This one's off of O'Reilly's, but the interchange also goes with Advance. It just didn't have, they gave me the wrong one, so I went and got the correct number. So when you open up your box for your pump, make sure you have these. The things you're going to need is a couple of wrenches, sockets, a little bit of grease, and you're going to need yourself pulley installer 67010. This is off of O'Reilly's. So we'll speed this up and we'll get this installed. Okay guys, for ease of recording and a little bit of time saving here, I have already started to disassemble some of the parts that we need to take off before we start actually attacking the power steering pump. So the first thing that I removed is the air box, which has plastic clamp, a couple of tabs that you need to move, which are one on the back, two on the side. Remove with the cover and the filter and the actual housing that sits here at the bottom. There's going to be one nut that sits back there and two bolts that sit up at the front. 13 millimeter wrench, or actually a deep socket with a little bit of penetrating fluid, or WD-40 is going to help you out quite a bit. Remove that out of the way. It's not necessary, but it gives you a little bit more access and a little bit of a better view of what you're doing over here. At the front, you want to go ahead and start loosening a 15 millimeter here, which is the adjustment for the serpentine belt, and this is going to be a 15 millimeter. Helps just loosen it. You don't need to remove it. The serpentine belt, before you actually pull it off, make sure you got an image of what it looks like. You can always Google what the serpentine belt looks like. I already have my installed power steering pump, new power steering pump with the new pulley here ready to go on standby, and I already removed the high pressure hose from the vehicle itself, from the pump, sorry. So that's going to be a 16 millimeter. Comes off quite easily. Well, it takes a little bit of finessing with it, but it comes off. You should see it right away. It should come off right away, sorry. And the ones that are going to be attaching, there's going to be two bolts that are going to be sitting up at the top. They're going to be both 13 millimeter, and you can access them up to the front. And there's going to be a third one down there, and it's also going to be a 13 millimeter. So for ease of recording and time saving, and she's off. So the bolts that come off the back, they're the exact same size actually. There's only 3 of them as opposed to the some of the older Cherokees, and maybe some other Jeeps as well. They would have 4 bolts, I believe it was, and they were all different sizes. This one, they all go through the power steering bracket, and they all finish attaching over here at the intake manifold. So just remember, if you're working and this vehicle was recently running, just remember that the exhaust manifold is right there and you can burn yourself. Here we can see the leakage that has been occurring. You know, it's been going on for a while. That is the original power steering pump. To avoid a little bit of the mess, I pulled the plug from the new one and I put it on there. I'm gonna remove the hose back here, and I'm gonna drain this reservoir. The next thing that needs to come out is these 2 tabs. There's one at the top and one at the bottom. What we're gonna do is we're gonna pry up on them and then try to hammer it out at the same time. Some good needle nose pliers helps with it. Also maybe a flathead screwdriver will help with it. So it's not too difficult to do. Just be careful when managing the power steering reservoir, because the elbow back here is pretty fragile. And I guess we'll be back when she's done. I'll probably also attack the power steering line. I have a new high pressure hose that's going to be replacing this one. Since we are in here, might as well just replace it. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to flush the entire system, and we're going to add an inline inline filter for this. So we'll get to those things, but in the meantime, let's remove this and separate the reservoir from the pump, and I'll get to you back to you guys in a second. Okay guys, now as you can see, the project is not complete because Mr. Sir himself wanted to change out that power steering high pressure hose. Word of advice: if it ain't broke, don't change it. Don't fix it, I should say. It was a real pain getting this out and threading it back in. This and the hose ended up being seized together. Ended up having to cut it here and then trying to put it back on. The only way that it would go under if this was the opposite way, 180 degrees, which wasn't gonna work. I managed to loosen and risk it with the low pressure hose, and it came out fine. A little finessing here and there, threading it back in. You know, it's a real pain getting them in there. It really is, because once you cross thread them, well, you're pretty much screwed, because there goes your power steering box and your power steering hose. So word of advice: if your hoses are fine, leave them alone. I got mine threaded back in. I'm gonna re-tighten them just one more time, and I'm gonna go ahead and start reassembling everything together. Seriously, that delayed this whole install by at least 2 hours. So it's been at least 2 hours of fighting with this high pressure hose and the low pressure hose at the same time. So yeah, if you don't need to change it, guys, save yourself the trouble. Just leave it alone. You know, and yes, it needs to be in this specific orientation, because this right here is the exhaust manifold, and yeah, that's gonna fry your line. So let's start putting everything back together. The other thing I had to remove was this. It's 2 bolts here and 1 back there on this 01. Other than that, let's see if I can get back to you guys. This isn't an easy task, especially because this got complicated. So let's get back to it, guys. Hopefully we'll be done pretty soon. I'll let you guys know. Okay guys, remember the 3 bolts that go back here, they are going to an aluminum manifold, so be mindful of that and don't over tighten them. As far as applying anti-seize, I don't think that's necessary because of the 2 different metals involved here. The other thing that I did was apply the high pressure hose fitting to the upward port of the power steering pump. From here, it's just a matter of tightening everything back up, putting the serpentine back on, tightening all these bolts back down, you know, making sure everything's nice and tight. And after this, we're gonna go ahead and flush the power steering system and get some new steering fluid in there, and hopefully we'll be able to get that new power steering inline filter as well. So alright guys, I'll keep you updated. Okay guys, so everything's back together. A few of the things that you have to do is, well, there's an inline fuel filter now in there, and to flush this, I have to cap off the elbow end off the reservoir, and I ended up using this line and kept filling this reservoir with new fluid and circulated everything by lifting up the vehicle so that I can spin my tires easily. Don't start the vehicle. To do this, all you got to do is put the key to the on position. For example, you put the key to the on position like this, and you're able to steer your steering wheel without any problems, or without much resistance. If you try to start the vehicle while to prime or to flush this power steering pump, what you're gonna do is you're gonna be running that bearing in there dry, and it's gonna make a hell of a noise. That's gonna, you know, prematurely wear out your power steering pump that you just installed. So what you want to do is that you want to run it with just the on position and steer the wheels left to right, you know, until you see clear fluid coming from this line, and then some more, you know, because you still have to add on the transmission fluid, I don't know why I keep saying transmission, the power steering filter. I already have a cooler for the power steering as well up front, so I gotta flush all of that. And